Hello again! Today, in honor of no particular event whatsoever, and more so just a general interest in shapes, I'm going to be ranking all 50 United States states based only on their shape, size, and overall layout. The ideal state should be one that's instantly recognizable off silhouette and has an overall good layout of its cities. Now, this is not a list based on topography. If it were, all of the mountainous states would be at the top of the list, and my home state of Florida, which is not only incredibly flat, but also incredibly hot, would place dead last. Okay, on to last place.
Number 50.
Originally, last place was going to be one of the many states that fails at being a rectangle, but Missouri just really irks me with its design for some reason. I mean, yes, the capital is in the middle, which is a good thing, but who's really going to Jefferson City? You've got the actual two cities of the state, barely in the state at all, and all this empty space in between, such wasted potential. This is going to be a recurring thing, by the way. And also, just a side thing, having the biggest city in your state, Kansas City, share names with a superior state is just really weak on Missouri's part. Last place.
Number 49.
Alright, here are where the bad rectangles start to show up. And let me just say, when you make so many of the states try to be rectangles, it makes them all overall a lot worse because they're so hard to tell apart. I mean, really, any of them could have been at this spot based off shape. It just happens to be North Dakota because having most of the cities just in a straight line along I-95 is really uninspired, especially when the Missouri River is right there to build off of. Also, Fargo and Grand Forks, these are pretty much in Minnesota at this point.
Number 48.
Kansas may be better than Missouri, but not by much. See, it's got the North Dakota problem, except instead of a straight line, all of its cities are in the right half. Plus, it's another failed rectangle.
Number 47.
South Dakota. I mean, definitely has a more even layout. The capital's in the middle. This is good, but it just kind of looks like it's melting. I mean, if you're going to do a rectangle, you really have to commit to it. So I just can't put it too high.
Number 46.
Shape-wise, it's not bad. I mean, it kind of feels like it's trying to hide the fact that it's a rectangle-shaped state, and I could almost believe that it was freeform, but after looking at the layout, I'm appalled. I mean, look, I know there's a coast over here, but every city is in the left third. I mean, no wonder all of these counties want to join Idaho.
Number 45.
Pennsylvania, yet another bad rectangle. Most of the cities are towards the edges, but I will give credit for this little bit up here where it's snuck up and connected to Lake Erie so that it can have some of the bragging rights for the Great Lakes. I respect that, and it also makes it look just a little less like Kansas, which is a good thing.
Number 44.
Our first tiny state. Now, it's not deliberately rectangle shaped, but it did turn out that way. And you might think that because of its size and where it is, it's a little more distinct, but if you size this up and stuck it out west, no one would bat an eye. Now, the cities are pretty clustered around the ocean and a few on the Connecticut River, but I mean, at least Hartford's in the middle.
Number 43.
Arizona's a weird one. I feel like it doesn't really know what it wants to do. It's a little trapezoid, it's a little rectangle, it's a little bit freeform, but I mean, the layout's not too bad. You get Capitol in the middle, and yeah, there's this empty space at the top, but I can excuse it this time, considering that's where the Grand Canyon is.
Number 42.
Iowa could have turned out like Missouri, but Des Moines in the middle here is actually its biggest city, so it will have a lot more of that draw. And yeah, the other cities are kind of spreading towards the edges, especially Sioux City over here. But I think the real problem with Iowa is its shape. I just kind of don't know what it's doing. It's real blasé, you know? It's just kind of got nothing going on. I would never be able to picture Iowa on command.
Number 41.
Arkansas is pretty much just Iowa too. Little Rock is good in the middle. Cities are a little bit closer towards the center. And I think it's overall just slightly more recognizable.
Number 40.
Ohio, once again, is kind of a lot like the last two. I'm glad Columbus, its capital, is right here in the center, but its cities are weird because they're kind of clustered in opposite corners with the exception of Toledo up here. What gives Ohio the edge over Arkansas and Iowa is that Lake Erie kind of makes it a little U-shaped here, which just gets it a little bit more distinct in my mind.
Number 39.
Finally, a vertical state. Mississippi and Alabama make a pretty nice pair, but I really wish there was anything going on in the top right corner. And I'm not too big of a fan of just how jagged the western border is thanks to the Mississippi.
Number 38.
Alabama, the other half of the duo, and I think they would each stand out more if they were on their own, which that is going to be a recurring theme for some of these duo states. I think its cities are a little better spread out than Mississippi's, and I think the little, like, kind of, the way this bottom corner bit is split in two makes it stand out just that little bit more.
Number 38.
Illinois was originally going to be a whole lot higher on the list because I think its shape is overall pretty distinct from some of the other ones we've seen. And then I looked at the map and I remembered that every single person in Illinois lives up here in Chicago. Just a waste of the whole rest of the state.
Number 36.
Georgia is kind of like the long-lost third sibling of Mississippi and Alabama looks-wise, although it doesn't have the, like, bottom bit in the corner, which makes it that much more distinctive. And I think its cities are overall pretty well laid out. I mean, Atlanta does obviously hog the Northwest. And, oh, one thing I gotta say. This is so deceptive. I was driving up to Knoxville the other day, and I got through Atlanta, and I was thinking, oh, I guess that's probably about it for Georgia. And they managed to squeeze, like, maybe 2.5, 3 hours in that little gap before I hit Chattanooga. It was horrible.
Number 35.
North Carolina is definitely the weaker half of the pair. I mean, its cities are spread well, but I've never really kind of known what it looks like, and it's just, I don't know, it's just not making an impression on me for some reason. I don't know.
Number 34.
Back to right-angled states. And I mean, definitely a lot more distinct, but yikes, this layout is really lopsided. And when it comes to rectangle-like states that have a bit taken out of it, there's definitely one that comes to mind first.
Number 33.
Utah. Definitely could have a better layout, but I gotta give points for being all right angles. There's no way I'm gonna confuse it with another state.
Number 32.
Another one with an all right layout. I do like the commitment to right angles, though. Even if it couldn't be a rectangle, it's still held true down here.
Number 31.
The first state. Yeah, all the cities are in a line, but I mean, look at Delaware. What are you gonna do? I mean, you know, the shape's not bad. I just think it's not at all memorable. The only reason I remember Delaware is because it's the small one that's not Rhode Island, you know?
Number 30.
Indiana's another melted rectangle type state, but I mean, at least it's vertical, so it stands out a little, and city layout's not too bad.
Number 29.
Man, Tennessee could have been a whole lot cooler if it had just been a little bit more of a parallelogram, but for its shape, I think it does a pretty good job of not having its cities just kind of in a straight line across the whole thing.
Number 28.
It's the worst of the two perfect rectangles, purely because they put the capital way down here in the corner.
Number 27.
Colorado has a little bit better of a layout than Wyoming, although they are still pretty clustered in this area here. But I just gotta say, had Wyoming not existed, or vice versa, Colorado not existed, they would be in the top 10, because it's great. It's a, you know, great, perfect rectangle state, but with two of them, it's impossible to tell them apart off silhouette, so it's just gonna make you second guess which one is which. Shame.
Number 26.
I like Kentucky's design. I'm always gonna remember it because of that one picture where it shows the states and it's like the chef holding out Kentucky on the platter. You know what I'm talking about. But without that, I think it's kind of middle of the road, and also Louisville's really out there.
Number 25.
I think Wisconsin cities are definitely a little too bottom heavy, but the shape is not too bad. Although, I am obligated to say that it would be definitely a lot better if it had the Upper Peninsula.
Number 24.
Maine. I'm always going to recognize it, but they have got to start to put some cities in the rest of the state.
Number 23.
I like Minnesota. It's kind of funky, but it reminds me of when I try to reshape something in Photoshop, but I like screw it up because I have no clue how the Photoshop tools work for some reason. I don't know. The thing is, there's like nothing going on in the cities department here. That really knocks it down a bit. But I do love this chunk that sticks out at the top because there's this whole story about there's this lake that's in Canada, and they said, well, the border is going to meet at the northwesternly point of the lake, which happened to be all the way up in this weird corner. So it really like screwed up the map, but it's a fun piece of trivia. I just love that.
Number 22.
Washington, a real underdog story. I mean, originally it was going to be way up there with Oregon and some of the other rectangle-like states, but then I started looking at it, and I don't know, for some reason, the way the Salish Sea kind of comes down and cuts the state, and leaves this little bit on the left here, it really appeals to me for some reason. But really, it could have a lot more going on in the Northeast, but by pure coincidence, along with Minnesota, it's another one that bleeds into mainland Canada.
Number 21.
Virginia, I kind of always liked because for some reason in my head, the way I remembered it was Virginia is that it looks like an upside down V, which like, yeah, that's a stupid way to remember it, but that's what I did. I also like that this little bit here steals the bottom part of New Jersey.
Number 20.
Honestly, nothing much to say about New Jersey. It's kind of a funky shape, but not noticeably funky like some of the later ones are going to be. Cities are well spread.
Number 19.
Oh, Nevada. Man, I love that it's almost a perfect trapezoid, which, by the way, trapezoid, way more interesting state to make a shape around, and just way more interesting shape than a rectangle in general. I love the trapezoid. But I'm afraid that by my own rules, I just cannot excuse this city layout. I mean, real shame.
Number 18.
New Hampshire. Obviously the start to another pair of states, and I think this layout is not too bad considering how it's shaped, and it is shaped kind of boring, but the yin and yang effect it has with Vermont is why it's so high on the list.
Number 17.
And here's the other half. It's only better because it's slightly V-shaped, thus telling me which one is which, but that is something that Colorado and Wyoming should take notes on.
Number 16.
California is a decently interesting shape, and it definitely gets points for just how long it is. But then again, it loses those points for having a relatively empty top chunk.
Number 15.
New York. Honestly, cities are laid out pretty well, although I do think that Syracuse and Albany always swap places. But shape-wise, I don't know, it's kind of boring overall, a little. Who's really thinking of New York State? They kind of really only care about the little tail area down here. And if we're talking about the tail, another state definitely does that better.
Number 14.
Alright, like with New York, I think that Boston should be about in the middle, but man, check out the curly tail. I mean, that's just fun. I just think it's a fun design.
Number 13.
South Carolina, first of all, fantastic city distribution in this state, but also, I've always liked the shape because it reminds me of like a cartoon diamond or a chaos emerald or something like that, I don't know.
Number 12.
Now, this is what I mean when I say a funky shape. This is instantly recognizable, and it has a decent layout. Pretty much from here on out, all of the states are going to be winners.
Number 11.
Idaho. Yeah, no, I love that it has a face in it, although, as you maybe can see, there's another state that does it just a little bit better.
Number 10.
Montana's always the one that I think of when I think of a state with a face. But, you know, Idaho's a fair pick, and Iowa's for if you're an insane person. But it kind of gets the edge over Idaho anyway, just because it's got a little bit better of a city distribution, and its capital city is a little bit more centralized.
Number 9.
Louisiana, like Vermont and, for me, Virginia, is one of those that you're never going to forget the name of, because it's shaped like the letter. And it's got a pretty good layout overall.
Number 8.
Rhode Island. Everyone knows it because it's the smallest state. And I mean, city-wise, at this scale, that's probably about as good as you're ever going to get. But I do wish it were just a little bit more recognizable on its own. Because if it weren't the smallest, it would definitely be another Delaware situation.
Number 7.
Man, the Upper Peninsula is so cool. It's such a great, iconic, I just love it. And everyone knows this is Michigan. That is, unless you're my incredibly stupid friend Nick, who, when I was showing him the script for this video, thought, hey, isn't that Maine? Honestly, I can't even believe that. But anyway, great city layout, and it's got the whole Michigan's a mitten thing, way to remember like where you are in the state. So just that's all around great design.
Number 6.
Oklahoma, man. If this were a ranking of state panhandles, it would win any day of the week. And that's coming from someone who lives in the other panhandle. Man, it's such a great design. It's instantly recognizable. Everyone knows it's Oklahoma. I just wish there were kind of something going on in the panhandle. But it being no man's land is also pretty cool, so.
Number 5.
Man, Alaska. Oh, this is just amazing. The biggest state, by far, has to deserve a spot this high up. And it's just got such a great design that I've drawn so poorly, all the way from the Aleutian Islands down over here in the bottom corner to Juneau, which is kind of the only problem. I do wish Juneau were kind of towards the middle. But also, weird coincidence, I realized I'm actually wearing my Alaska Junior Classical League shirt while filming this, which is a fun coincidence.
Number 4.
Maryland. Now, I love all the wacky, zany shapes, and this has, good central city, good city distribution, great overall there, but I've just one thing. Could it be too weirdly shaped? I mean, yeah, I can definitely identify. That's not the problem. I know this is Maryland, but if I'm a little kid and I'm like, I'm trying to doodle Maryland, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a little too difficult. It's got to be a little bit simpler.
Number 3.
Good old Florida. Man, I just think this is fantastic. Instantly recognizable. Great unique shape. There's no other one like it. Cities are spread all the way from Pensacola way down to Key West. If Tallahassee, or about where Gainesville, or maybe a little closer to Orlando, I think it'd be perfect.
Number 2.
Hawaii. If Michigan made top 10, I mean, obviously Hawaii's got to be a little higher, and it's got a fantastic layout. I mean, how could you not with it being across separate islands? And really, no notes.
Number 1.
Texas. Man, I mean, could you have expected anything else in first place? I mean, look at it. Instantly recognizable shape. Everyone knows Texas. And it's easy to picture. You could draw this kind of vaguely without having a picture right in front of you. Look, it's got a centralized capital city, good city spacing all around. I mean, this really is an absolute masterpiece. Well, that's about it. I should probably go to bed. It's about 4 in the morning when I'm filming this right now, so